Good afternoon. I'm Joan Macbeth, the program coordinator for the Vancouver International Women in Film Festival Screenplay Competition. And welcome to the Screenplay Competition Finalists Artist Talk at the 16th Annual Vancouver International Women in Film Festival, produced by Women in Film and Television Vancouver. Before we begin, I acknowledge that Women in Film and Television Vancouver and the Vancouver International Women in Film Festival are located and operated on the unceded traditional and ancestral homelands of the Coast Salish peoples, Squamish, Stolo, and Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam nations. For an opportunity to hear some stories from First Nation screenwriters, please check the festival events webpage. There will be 2 sessions of table reads on March 12th and 13th. I think you might have to pre-register for those. One of the many programs of Women in Film and Television Vancouver is the Tricksters and Writers Film Writing Program for Indigenous Women. It's held in connection with the Indigenous Independent Digital Filmmaking Program at North Vancouver's Capilano University. Also, please check out the film schedule. Over the years, I've seen so many amazing Canadian Indigenous films at this festival. Vancouver International Women in Film Festival would like to thank the following sponsors and partners: Canada Media Fund, Canadian Heritage, BC Arts Council, Creative BC, City of Vancouver Cultural Services, Telefilm Canada, Indigenous Digital Filmmaking Program at Capilano University, both a Center for Film and Animation, Front Row Insurance, VIF Connect, William F. White, Stripe Graphics, Karen Leung Marketing and Design, Chia Times Chia, EMG Design, Pender PR, Loose Lips Media, Tech Builders, Tech Butlers, and especially Ken Hayward. Ken is a Vancouver icon in the post-production arena and has been the sponsor of the Vancouver International Women in Film Festival Ken Hayward Screenplay Competition Award for several years. Vancouver International Women in Film Festival also thanks community partners: Vancouver Asian Film Festival, Vancouver Short Film Festival, Vancouver International Mountain Film Festival, Doxa Documentary Film Festival, Powell River Film Festival, Pacific Screenwriting Program, Cold Reading Series, Crazy Eights, Out on Screen, and Women in the Director's Chair. Last but not least, a big thank you to the Screenplay Competition Program award sponsor, the International Screenwriters Association, who provides a membership for each of our top 10 official selections. So it's now my pleasure to introduce Molly Cash, Director of Operations for the International Screenwriters Association, to say a few words.
Hi, thank you, Joan. Thank you so much. And thanks everybody at the Vancouver International Women in Film Festival. I'm so happy to be here today. Congratulations to all of the finalists. The ISA has been a proud sponsor of the Screenplay competition for several years now, and we are so happy to be providing you with ISA Connect memberships. ISA is dedicated to empowering screenwriters of all levels. Whether you're emerging or a seasoned pro, we focus on providing writers with tools to elevate your craft, your career, and your connections, and establishing solid relationships with the film community. Our website offers an all-encompassing resource hub, providing things such as writing gigs, classes, podcasts, industry pro tips, production resources, and more. We do have a couple of events coming up that are open to all and free, and we hope that you join us. Tomorrow, we actually have an event with Women in Film, the Los Angeles chapter. It is a pitching panel. We'll be hearing from several industry executives on pitching tips, and then we're going to hear 4 writers pitch their projects live and get live feedback. So that will be a lot of fun and very informative and educational. And then next Thursday, we have our Third Thursdays event, which is a monthly event. And these are both online. And we'll be hearing from leadership coach Tabby Biddle, focusing on how to find your voice and be comfortable speaking in front of others and pitching. So we do hope you join us for those events. You can check us out at networkisa.org and go to our events page to see the events and take a look at all that we have to offer. Thanks again so much, and congratulations, everyone.
Thank you, Molly. So I'm really kind of excited. I am signed up for that pitching event tomorrow, Bridging the Gap pitching event with Women in Film and ISA. So that's something you can sign up for on the ISA website. Maybe we're going to talk a little bit about pitching in the panel today. I just kind of thought that might be a good topic. Okay, so I'm just going to introduce our panelists today. Just quickly go through the list, and then we'll get down to some individual questions. So we have Isabel Bradbury, and Isabella Vergoon has co-wrote a feature called X's and O's, and Isabella is also a winner or a finalist in her own right with other feature, Jon Glick Fucks the World. Am I pronouncing that right? Okay, we have Morgan Brayton with a TV pilot, Flannery and Flannery. We have Kylie Capito, feature Regression. Charlotte Daniel, We Were Never Meant to Survive, a feature. And Helen Dorimas, Romanza is her feature. TM Gagnon, PB&J, a feature. Ariel Howler Silverstone has a TV pilot called Family Politics. Lulu Keating, unfortunately, is unable to attend. She's a finalist with her feature Klondike Kalahari. And Nubia Rahim, also unable to attend today, Pedal Power feature. So I'm going to start with Ariel Howler Silverstone. And you have a TV pilot?
Yeah.
Great. Hi.
Hi.
Okay. Tell us now where are you? You're in the US, I believe.
Yes, I'm in New York.
In New York. Awesome. Okay. And tell us about your inspiration for family politics.
Sure. So family politics was inspired by my mom, who decided this past summer to be a first-time political candidate at the age of 70. And so that is what it was based on. And my parents have been divorced for 25 years. And she decided to hire my dad as the political consultant. And then she sort of employed our entire family to help her run for office. And that is what inspired this pilot.
Oh my goodness. Sorry, tell me again the candidate for what was the office?
For like a state rep seat. So a very low level. Yeah. It's like a community politics. Yeah. Okay. So a state representative for her community.
Okay, awesome. Well, that sounds like you have a lot of material.
Honestly, well, because I was in New York and then I went back to Connecticut, where my parents live, and I lived with them during the summer with my dog for 2 months, and so it was just all of us were like in this race with her, and it was just so wild. Yeah, it was crazy, and she took it so seriously. You know what I mean? She took it so seriously, so it was great.
Okay, so you're saying this is maybe not everybody takes this whole position quite so seriously as your mom?
That's funny that you should. That's a great question. I think anybody, I wanted to be in local politics when I was much younger. And I think anybody running for local politics, they're doing God's work, because it's really like, as we know, that is where things really get done. But my cousin was simultaneously running for like US Senate in Georgia in a very important race. And so I think she would call him and be like, can we share like a social media manager? What do you think about this? And he's running for, US Senate in one of the most hotly contested seats in history. And so I'm just sort of watching all of this unfold. And she would be like, we're just really trying to get to 2,000 candidates. It was just all of this stuff happening. It was in the middle of COVID. So I think that I loved that she took it so seriously and that she really felt that this was an important thing for her to do.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Ariel, that's fabulous. So now, have you been writing long or screenwriting? Or?
Yeah. So
Wow.
I started off as I'm an actor by trade. So I've been an actor for the last 10 years. I made a short film that I just did the concept for. I didn't write it. I hired 2 screenwriters to do that a couple years ago. I finished the festival circuit about a year ago. And then, when COVID hit, no actor, I'm sure there are other actors here, there was just no work. And so I started writing, and I hired a writing coach, and I really loved it. And so this is my first pilot ever. And then I'm also working on a dating anthology series that we're shooting in the fall.
Great.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, great. Okay, I'm gonna move along. I think I'm not sure how the timing goes. It seems like such a big panel here today. So yeah. So
Thank you.
Thanks so much. And TM Gagnon.
Hello.
Hello. Am I
There.
saying your name correctly?
Yes. Well, yeah, it's TM. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you have a feature, PB&J. Can
Yes.
you tell us about and you're in Vancouver, aren't you?
No, I'm not. I'm way up north now. I was in Vancouver until COVID hit. Yeah. And then,
okay.
yeah.
So
there was a bit of a,
there
was a bit of a deadline. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But I'm always in self-isolation, so it's all good.
Okay.
Introverts rule. And we are surviving this almost painlessly. I came up here from Vancouver, where I used to teach at Vancouver Film School, and a few other places. When I found out that I was going to be a grandmother and an aunt all within 3 months for the very first time. And so it was sort of, and everything was north. So like the babies were going to be born north. So I figured if I was ever going to see them, I should probably, make my move. So I did. And yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, so you've been screenwriting for a while?
Yeah, I finished, I think I wrote a couple of screenplays without knowing what the hell I was doing in the late 90s. I went from playwriting and acting as well. Aged out like we all do at 28, and decided I needed to find another career doing something, anything, or I wouldn't be in the film industry at all. And I knew I could write, so pursued that, got some great feedback, and then actually went to film school to learn how to screenwrite at Vancouver Film School. Morgan, one of the other writers here on the panel, was one of my instructors there that year, so that's cool. Awesome. And then it was about 2 years after that, I was working full time as a writer, story editor in the Vancouver film industry, mostly doing documentary and reality TV and all those things that we don't want to forever be associated with, but are really fun to write. And a story is a story is a story, and a lot of it's really fun, and a lot of them are really important projects for me. And yeah, so in PB&J I started working on in 2012, sitting on a beach with my kids, and very cold May day, and it just sort of just came to me that this was a story that I've been probably thinking about for a while, but really just needed to get it down in 2012.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's move over to Morgan, your former instructor.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Like, how does that happen that you both end up on the same panel?
Right?
You know what? Talent just finds each other, Kim and I actually circle around each other in many different forms ever since we met, and I'm happy to keep doing so.
Okay, so So you've obviously been writing and in the industry for a while.
Yes. Also, we have a bit of a theme going here. I also am an actor. I've been an actor for approximately 327 years in film and TV, as well as theater. And my background is actually in sketch comedy. And so I've always written for sketch, but this last couple of years is I've started writing episodic and comedy for TV. So that's how I ended up here.
Fantastic. So your pilot is Flannery and Flannery. Mm-hmm. And tell us a bit about the inspiration for that.
Yeah. So I mean, first of all, I'll tell you that it's a 1 hour TV pilot. I will add with 2 female leads over 40. In which my main character, who is a booze-soaked detective named Meg Flannery, gets a call and begrudgingly agrees to go. Her mother has just died in Victoria, and begrudgingly agrees to go and help the ghost of her estranged hippie mother find her missing Burton Cummings gnome. You know, that old trope.
Yeah.
So in looking for the gnome, of course, she stumbles upon a murder, which sets them off on this series of solving murders. It is darkly funny, supernatural mystery comedy that explores themes of rewriting history, and it's set in my hometown, the picturesque but definitely haunted Victoria, BC. And I grew up there, and my mom did die suddenly 15 years ago, and I had to go and clean out her house. So it was partly inspired by that and me really missing my mom and kind of wishing that I had a way to communicate with her. But ironically, I'm terrified of ghosts, like legitimately terrified of ghosts. So I don't know why I chose to write a script with ghosts in it. Maybe not the smartest thing I've ever done, but yeah, so it's inspired by that, and also the relearning of Victoria's history, because as an adult in the last 10 years, I've been learning a lot about the history of Victoria, and it's really, and Canada in general, it's really, really different than what I was taught in school. And yeah, learning about all these things that I feel like should actually be more widely known. If I grew up there and I didn't know it, then lots of other people don't. So it sort of incorporates this retelling of Canada's history with Meg and Nora, her mother, their attempt to figure out their own history and rewrite that as well.
That sounds great. I think that's important to like get these histories out there, and it's a fun way to do it if you can do it comedically.
Yeah, I mean,
then it's not that big history lesson, for the younger people. It's storytelling, and there are some good histories.
I've made a career out of trying to make people laugh and think at the same time. So it's kind of my jam. So it's all kind of all the things in my life coming together into one series.
Okay, that's awesome. I like that. I like that comedy is very subversive that way. So
agreed
for that.
Thanks, Jon.
Okay, let's have Kylie Capito.
Hi.
Hi there. Okay, so your feature script is called Regression.
Yes.
And I think it's a kind of a horror.
It is, yeah. It's a horror thriller, and Regression is about a phobic-riddled romance novelist that undergoes a past life regression to overcome her fear of heights. And then during her past life regression, she remembers herself being violently murdered in a last life. And then she travels to the south of France to meet her fiancé's family for the first time and realizes to her horror that the house that they live in is the same home from her past life regression, and has to uncover the dark truth of the sinister home and the family that inhabits it before it's too late.
Wow. That's quite a story.
Yeah, it's a fun one for sure.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So let's see, where are you, in LA?
Yeah, I'm based in Los Angeles.
Yeah, okay. Are you an actor too?
I am actually not an actor. No, I'm a producer.
Okay.
So I'm a senior creative producer of advertising and short form content. So I do a lot of TV commercials, music videos, some reality TV. So I work in the world of producing, but also
Oh,
writing for
fantastic.
about 12, 13 years now,
Huh?
pretty diligently.
Great. So have you had other screenplays produced?
Nothing produced yet. No, I've had some screenplays that have done well in other competitions.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but
Okay.
this is an exciting one for me. I'm super honored to be in the top 10.
Yeah, well, we're glad to have exceptional scripts. So now how did this really, this is quite a story.
Yeah.
How did you get the idea for this one?
Yeah, it's actually based on my own experience with my own past life regressions. So I'm actually a practicing Buddhist. So I believe wholeheartedly in that we, continue to come back and relive, certain themes in our lives and play out different events until we get it right, for example. So I delved pretty deeply into my own past life regressions. And through those experiences, it's kind of changed my perspective on even how I view my life. And I've, seen and realized how many things, that have played out in past lives for me are now reoccurring in this one, for example. And even how, we might have irrational phobias in this lifetime that we might not necessarily know where they come from, but they're actually something that we carry over from an experience in a past life. So through my own past life regression, I've really learned to look at my own life differently. And that was kind of the inspiration, for this story. And, me also thinking, because I love to travel too, what if I were to, show up at a place one day that I recognized from one of my past life regressions, for example, and kind of how that could play out in a myriad of ways. So it's been really fun and educational for me, and also kind of mind opening to kind of delve into my own past lives.
Wow. Wow, that is so exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked that South of France part too, myself. Um,
Thank you. That was actually a location for one of my past lives. So the house I set the script in is an actual home I saw myself living in a past
wow.
life.
Wow, that's really cool. Okay, let's I'm kind of interested in the idea of how do we get the scripts out there? How who's pitching, who's not pitching, who's scared to pitch? I mean, you have the producer hat that you wear sometimes, even though like a smaller types of production. But what's your take on getting getting your script out there and for somebody that might want to produce it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the hardest thing is that it really comes down to exposure and who you know. So it's tricky for me in that, like, I do feel like I have a unique position in that I work with a lot of different production companies, but at the same time, I also work in a different format. So I primarily work in advertising, so it makes it a little bit harder to get my script to the right people. But I think doing things like this kind of competition, and ISA is another great network that I've, been a part of before, and just through platforms like that, I think more and more the industry is kind of opening its doors a little bit for people that may not be repped necessarily to kind of get their foot in the door. So it's tricky in that it's really just exposure. It's, getting your script to the right people and to enough people, that someone wants to pick it up and get it produced. And putting my producer hat on too, I think I'm also really cognizant of the fact that, like, movies are expensive to make. So it's as much as, I may write a script and think it's the most wonderful thing in the world and want to get it out there. It takes a lot for a script to actually get, purchased and produced and put into production, because, it is such a big endeavor and people are putting years of work into the process. So it's tricky. I mean, I think it's just, getting your work out there as much as possible until something finally picks up, and just, continuing to work hard to get it there.
And are you finding competitions help to open some of those doors, or certain ones do and others not so much, or what's been your experience on that?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I've had competitions before that do open some doors, and, I've been able to get my foot in and try and get, a scripts off the ground and running. And then I've had other competitions that, maybe didn't help at quite as much. I think it just depends on the competition itself and the opportunity when it presents itself. But I mean, honestly, every opportunity is a great one, even just to, be here and to meet the other panelists and the other screenwriters today. And that in itself will create new opportunities with just meeting the other panelists as well. So I think every opportunity is a great one.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to say, how about Charlotte? Are you here? Charlotte Daniel. And you're from the UK.
Hello, yes.
Hi.
Hi.
Are you in Scotland?
I'm actually currently in Vancouver, but I'm originally from Scotland. So
Wait, well,
I'm actually in Vancouver.
Why are your lips not moving in sync? Because I was expecting it to like be relaying from far and
no, I'm closer than we think.
Yeah, okay, well that's amazing. So so tell us about We Were Never Meant to Survive.
Yeah, so it's not a cheery one, unfortunately. It's actually based on a pandemic, but interestingly, it was written before all of the state of the world that we find ourselves in now, which could either be its best, could be the best thing for it, or could have shot it in the foot, before it gets out the gate. So, yeah, it's set in the Scottish Highlands, and it's based on a young woman who lives there in isolation. She's trying to keep people out of her farm, her family's farm, but she's sort of forced to deal with the outside world and the past when a stranger arrives and sort of makes her reconcile with some things that have happened in the past. So yeah, it's a bit morbid, but it's it's my baby at the moment. So
yeah, no, that's good. That's interesting. Because I heard from one of the jurors that, I mean, obviously you're in the top 10 and they really liked it, and that was like kind of the caveat. It's like, oh man, I don't know. There's a pandemic on. I'm not too sure if that's what people want, but she went for it, and that's interesting that you're prophetic, that you maybe started on a story that's come a little close to reality, I guess.
Yeah, I think it was a fear of mine always. I think it's one of those sort of existential fears, and that's what drove me to write it. And now, all of a sudden it's happened. I feel much calmer now that it's actually all happened. I don't feel as scared. But at the time when I wrote the script, that was what was sort of driving me, that fear.
Oh wow! So the actual reality of COVID helped you with your fear.
Yeah, I would say like Ed. There was a quote from a writer called Charlie Brooker who said that he wrote Black Mirror, and he was saying that he wrote all those things because of all his fears, but then as things start to happen, it makes him feel less scared because it's already happened, and he's lived through it basically.
Yeah. Wow. That's really something. So what? So you're in Vancouver now, but you've been living in Scotland, or?
Yes. So originally Scotland, spent some time in London. I work in my day job. I work in the locations department. So I've worked, sort of all over the world at London, Scotland, Australia, and now I find myself in Vancouver. So I'm just doing a bit of a tour.
Okay. And so when were you last in the UK? I'm sorry, I'm a little sensitive about, because somewhere I read you were from Scotland, and I'm not sure if UK is a correct term anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, UK is still correct. We're not independent yet, but Scotland itself is a country. So I originally am from Scotland, but the United Kingdom is our sort of, yes, that still applies. So I was last in the UK. Actually, I had to go back last summer for just some sort of family personal things that were happening back there. But I ended up having a prolonged amount of time there, which was great because I got to see my family and spend quality time with them, especially in this sort of during the pandemic. I wasn't able to see everyone, but it was nice to spend quality time with my mum and things like that. So I've had my fix recently. which was good.
So is there a recognizable difference between countries on dealing with the pandemic?
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I would say that there is. When I was back in the UK, it was during the summer, so I think we all globally had a sort of small respite in terms of,
Right.
our numbers went down, so it didn't feel quite as prolific as it did at the start and now. So, and we're very lucky here in Vancouver that our numbers have managed to stay relatively low compared to the UK, where a lot of my family have been in lockdown for months now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're looking forward, everyone, to it being over. Hopefully, the vaccines get rolled out and we're good to go. I'm going to say, as a writer, I find it not as hard. Because we introverted writers maybe sometimes like to just hunker down over our computer keyboard anyways, but it'll be nice to do a few more different things, like have film festivals as film festivals instead of as a Zoom thing. But this is good. This has been a good festival so far. Let's see, do we have, thanks very much. I think, do we have Helen?
There we go.
Are you there? I hope you're there.
Am I here now?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay.
I don't see you yet.
Okay. Well, I'm here.
Okay, there you are. Fantastic. I'm glad you could attend. And are you in LA?
Yes.
Okay, and please, I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name. Just maybe tell me your name.
It's my name is Helen Doremus.
Doremus, okay. And you have a feature script that I understand from the jury that was very well liked. And it's a period drama called Romanza.
Yes.
So can you tell us what your inspiration was?
Well, sort of like the previous writer, it's not a cheery one.
No.
It's a set in World War II in Europe. So it's about a young idealistic concert violinist who gets all caught up with the Nazis because he refuses to inform on his lover, and ends up being imprisoned in a concentration camp for the duration of the war. Basically, he has to find ways to survive, both through human connection in the camp, where he makes a friend in a Romani woman named Vadima, and also in trying to preserve his love and connection with music. The the inspiration for it is a little more convoluted. I'm afraid it's not coming from personal experience, but
well,
actually,
maybe
I'm
not.
glad it's not coming from personal experience.
Yeah.
But it's the original seed of the idea was I'm a choral musician, trained for about 20 plus years of choral work. And so I have a great affinity for classical music. And just one day, January 27th rolled around, and that's Holocaust Remembrance Day. And it was the liberation of Auschwitz, but it's also Mozart's birthday. And that got me thinking that certainly someone knew that when it happened, and what an interesting, collection of things coming together. And then from there, I've always had an interest in sort of underdogs and people who kind of get forgotten. And so while there's a great deal of literature and a great deal of attention paid, and duly so, to the Jewish experience of the Holocaust, there are also these other groups who have sort of been lost between the lines of history. And so I've always had sort of an interest in both the homosexual experience, which is the main character, and the Romani experience. And for various reasons, both of those groups have very little literature about their actual experience. But even in researching the film, I found out things I'd never heard before. So as a history nut, that kind of delighted and infuriated me. So yes.
Oh, well, it's good. I mean, it's unfortunately kind of a classic story when you talk about World War II. It's Auschwitz is a big part of that. And yet you went with the non-traditional 2 gay men in a relationship.
Yes.
It's it was heartbreaking to hear about it. And then the Romani is, I don't know if other parts of the world in the education, but it's something that, I never heard of that until I was an adult, that was part of the persecution.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about the Romani experience is they don't have a written or they don't have a substantial written history. So a lot of their experience is merely captured in the verbal history that's passed down. But there have been some academic studies into it. For instance, I believe there are 9 distinct dialects of the Romani language, and one of them is just considered extinct after the 1940s. And that, I believe, is the one from the Polish Czechoslovakian area. So they lost a significant part of their history and part of their people and culture through that. And they consider that period to actually extend from the 40s to the 90s. They consider that a whole swath of decades in which they were persecuted and had a genocide perpetrated against them. So yeah, one of the things that I had never ever heard of until I was researching the script about Auschwitz, which everyone thinks they understand the mechanics of Auschwitz, they think they've seen everything, was there's actually a Romani rebellion in Auschwitz. That there was a distinct camp where they were held, and they overthrew the Nazi control of that camp for about 3 months.
Wow.
From May to August of 1944, and drove out their captors from the camp and managed to hold that area for about 3 months.
Wow. Helen, I want to see that movie.
Unfortunately, I included as much of the Romani experience as I felt I was qualified as a person who enjoys history to include. But what I would really love is to see somebody with that background write that script.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. I want to see it, but I don't want to see it. But that's very interesting. Yeah. So how did you get started in screenwriting?
I've always had an affinity for writing ever since I was very small. Both my parents are writers by trade in different ways, and so it was always something that felt very accessible to me. I didn't get into screenwriting until I was maybe in my early 20s. It was always something I sort of intended to do but didn't get to. But I'm not very formally trained, actually. I've only ever had one formal screenwriting class, and the rest of it has sort of been learning from books and the materials that are online and sort of teaching myself, which is why, Romans is sort of my first sort of my introductory script to try and dip my toe into really advertising myself as a screenwriter, because the writing the script taught me so much, and I feel a lot more competent now. But yeah, my progression to most things in life is very sideways, but writing itself has been the through line for most of my life. So
well, that's just congratulations on that being your first, basically your first feature script.
It's the first one I've put out there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, good work. Just goes to show, do we really need film school? Some people, that's kind of another topic, because it comes up at other like screenwriting events, and people who have done film school versus people who haven't. Yours is totally self-taught. That's kind of amazing that you've done one course. And
well, it was an invaluable course, don't get me wrong. The woman who led it, Monona Wally, has a film background, and she pushed us hard, and she's actually the reason I wrote Romanza when I did, because I thought I wouldn't write it for years and years.
Oh wow.
But she's like, if it's haunting you, then you just need to write it. So
yeah. Well, that's awesome. And sorry, who was the instructor again?
Monona Wally.
Okay.
She's out of UCLA many years ago.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, UCLA is good for good writing program there. I've known other people that went there, like just for the like extended studies side of it, not like a full-blown film school, although whatever. Yeah. To each their own. But okay, that's awesome. Well, congratulations on that script.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. How are we doing on time and list? I don't know. We're down to, I've left, I'm not going to say the best for last, but just something really unusual. So we have Isabella Vergoon. I'm sorry about the name pronunciation.
Vergoon, no worries.
Vergoon, okay. And Isabella, you wrote Jon Glick, Fucks the World, and you also have a writing partner.
I do. She has me too. We have each other.
Okay, but and her name is Isabel Bradbury. Yeah. So I feel like you're really ahead of the game with how a celebrity combined name kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that works, but the Isabel.
Yeah, and we're roommates too. People think that's much more complicated than it is, but we live in the same house, so we don't have.
We're very rarely calling for both of us at the same time.
But it's awesome. I just think it's awesome. And then that you both wrote X's and O's. Mm-hmm. So I don't think I've had a situation where one person has been on two places on this list. So congratulations on that. So what do you guys want to talk about? Who wants to go first now? Because I think we're down to the last. I think you're it for the day in the top 10. So,
well, I'll let Isabel take the lead on X's and O's, because man, oh man, did she spearhead that one?
Okay.
Well, I mean, we can talk a little bit about so X's and O's is a queer road trip rom-com. So needless to say, we're very excited to be mentioned in the same conversation with some of these like incredibly complex, like deep, dramatic scripts. Like I'm very excited to try to read all of them. But we started living together while we were both getting our master's degrees from USC. Speaking of film school,
okay.
We're also down here in LA, like a couple other people are as well. And at the time, as we were getting to know each other a little bit, we started talking about relationships and breakups, and exes who each other would probably never meet, but after hearing enough stories about them, you kind of get the idea. It's like, man, your ex would not get along with my ex. But under what circumstances could we kind of get those people together? And then being writers, of course, we threw that around a little bit and threw it against the wall and ended up with a story about two women falling in love very suddenly, very quickly, and deciding to get married after only a few months of knowing each other. And then one of the two women, her very, very best friend in the whole world, her male best friend, decides that he just can't stand for it. So he tracks down her fiance's ex-boyfriend to convince him to take to the road to go stop the shotgun wedding and maybe try to win back his girlfriend in the process. So it's we like to think of it as a romp.
It's a romp, yeah.
Yeah.
We've only got one cis straight man in the whole thing, so that's very,
Okay, that's amazing. That sounds so much fun. And yeah, I mean, we have a little bit of everything, and because we don't do categories, that this year was the first year we actually added TV pilots.
Wow.
And I didn't know exactly how that was going to happen, and we just kind of put it all in together, because we got almost half and half, which just blew me away. Because but you know, we just thought it was maybe time to try out TV pilots as well.
There's a lot of them.
Because yeah, it's very popular, and it's, you know, I mean, we thought it was kind of the golden age when, you know, Netflix first started to take over the world. You know, and you know, because I watched Mad Men on those little DVDs that they sent in the red envelopes, right?
Absolutely. I remember that too.
Yeah, right. And so now, I mean, it's only gotten bigger and bigger, and you know, this whole streaming thing, and so many more, like even limited series. So, you know, there's a lot going on in the industry.
And that was actually kind of part of the fun, of writing this particular piece, because Isabel and I don't usually write together. This was kind of a one-off when our voices really combined. We were so excited about this, but for the most part, we both write each, but I'm more of a feature writer. Isabel's more of a television writer. Mm-hmm. So then to bring those together, Isabel's got the jokes and the structure, and she's real fast. And I don't know, I bring in some goofiness, and, I think we ended up with a really strong kind of best of both worlds in a feature sort of situation.
That's great. That's really good. So, okay, what about Sean?
Oh, Sean's a mess. Very
different story.
Jon Glick's a very different story. Also, comedic-ish, dramedy.
But dark.
I actually have to give credit to Isabel for this one too, because she really helped me crack this. This was my thesis for grad school. Oh, wow. And I wanted to write a story about, we see a lot of coming of age stories. We're kind of having a renaissance of good coming of age stories from different demographics now. But what I had always wanted to see was something a little more reflective of my experience, which was someone who was just a mess, maybe trying to have to learn to slow down a little bit. There was something about I think everyone comes out of middle school and high school a little bit traumatized. And I know for me, as a young woman who was dealing with anxiety, who was dealing with what turns out to be gender queerness for myself, a lot of not knowing how to express kind of sexual desire and stuff when you're 16, 17 years old. I wanted to write a story about a young woman who's dealing with all of that, and kind of the sexual violence that we go through at that age, while also being kind of a fun comedy. So essentially, Jon Glick, she's 17 years old. She walks out on the roof of her school naked, distributing pornography that she has drawn herself, and gets herself sent, essentially almost expelled, unless she agrees to go to therapy to work out what her anger issues are. And because she's no longer able to push the boundaries of school in the way she wants to, she decides instead to seduce her history teacher, which ends imaginably not the best. So I had a lot of fun working on it, but it was not based very heavily, the incidents in it were not based very heavily on personal experience, but a lot of the conversations that happened, a lot of the actual dialogue is straight from real life. So it was a lot to work through, but it ended up being, I'm very happy with Sean and her hot mess.
Yeah. So was the jury.
I'm very, very happy.
Congratulations on that. Okay, so you guys are the USC Film School.
That's us. Yeah.
Tell me how that is these days. I knew when I was just getting started, I knew of somebody who had graduated from there, and she became a manager.
Yeah.
So, but she's also very creative, and you know, we had a few conversations, and some people kind of just go, you know, then you hear the other side of, they never taught screenwriting really in school, which always sounded really weird to me, because what, you know, I mean, what else is there? Like, where do you start?
Yeah,
You know, like,
that was our experience, but we learned a lot, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, fortunately, we were there at a time when we crossed paths with so many amazing professors, so many amazing, unbelievably dedicated staff members. Additionally, our cohort, which was about 30 people when we were there, just happened to be some of the most like talented and kind and funny and weird people that we still are very much in touch with to this day. But absolutely, I mean, I think on day one, I will say our first class was an acting class, which kind of threw a lot of us writers for a bit of a loop. But other than that, it was down and dirty screenwriting, like like all day long.
I'm happy to hear that, because that always seemed like an odd thing.
Yeah. One thing that I know that USC does very well, and one of the reasons why I applied to it when we were in the process of applying specifically, is that it does have a dedicated television writing program. And it was one of the first big film schools in the LA area to do that. And because I knew that I wanted ultimately to go into television writing, it was good that they paid so much attention to the technical differences between feature writing and TV writing.
And to expand on that, I think, you know, you're right when you're talking about it. Film school is definitely, it's for some people, and for some people it's not. For us, it happened to be a hugely valuable experience. The screenwriting classes themselves were so amazing. We had professors who, Jack Epps, David Isaacs, Howard Rodman, David Howard, people who wrote the books on screenwriting. So that was wonderful to get that. But also being able to take classes on pitching, to take classes on acting and directing, to take classes specifically on the business of screenwriting, which was so stressful and at the same time so incredibly valuable. And I think, as Isabel said, the most important thing is coming out of that cohort with like 30 people who have your back, who send jobs to each other, who really want to see everyone succeed. We were one of the most employed cohorts coming right out of the program because people were really looking after each other. So if you can find that community somewhere else, 110%, that's amazing. We happened to find ours at USC, and we were very lucky.
That's really great. And actually that is what I have heard about the plus of going to film school, is the cohort and the contacts, and those contacts do stay with you.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think especially if you're in LA.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, there's a lot of people that, they're writing from somewhere else. And let's segue into talking about what, if you're not in LA, I think we can, I'm not sure about the technicalities here, if we can open up to a more general discussion, but just kind of checking the time here. Oh, awesome. Something changed when I said that. I love this. This is my first time leading a Zoom thing, so it's things are a little bit new. Like, for example, I mean, we have organizations like the ISA, and people from everywhere, writers from everywhere, can kind of check into that. I'm sure there's others. There's, if you can't go to film school, what do you do? There's always, like Helen was saying, she had, hers was through UCLA. So that's yeah.
Actually not. My teacher was from UCLA. I was from Antioch University.
Oh, okay. So you did it as independent study. Mm-hmm. Actually, I had a screenwriting teacher from UCLA. Like, she moved to Portland when I was studying, but she was from that UCLA, and then was a screenwriter for a number of years, and then moved to Portland. because she didn't have to be in LA anymore. But yeah, I mean, what are people doing? Okay, let's see, we had Vancouver Film School, I think, or yeah.
Mhm.
So what's the consensus? Are most people going to more formal writing education, or people striking out on their own? How is that for people these days?
I think like I started out on my own, right? And sort of just winging it. And I didn't have a lot of structure. When I started out, I knew how to write plays, which are not structured the same way, or they're not thematically driven the same way, or anything like that. To plays and screenplays are totally different beasts. But I mean, I got a book. My dad bought me a book called "How to Write a Screenplay in 21 Days" by Vicky King.
Oh, I have
And yeah, you know, and it's like, you've got to be kidding, Dad, right? But I tried it. I actually was able, because I already had the idea of story, and I already had some of the idea of structure. It was really applicable. But whether, it's kind of personal, and people like, because I've taught at university, I've taught at film school, I've taught at community college, I've taught completely via email screenwriting. And it's really an independent journey. Absolutely. Like if you have 4 years and you, want to commit to that because you want a really broad idea of film, then, that's the ideal program for you. If you only have 1 year, then, a 1-year program is in a specialization, and because, you don't want to be a DOP, you don't want to be necessarily a director, then maybe a screenwriting program is like BFS, which offers all of those individual programs, and which does offer a TV stream, a feature film stream, and a gaming stream now, a games writing stream. Maybe that's the option. And for other people, it's just to get a taste of it, to see if it's something that they want to do as a hobby, then take it in community college and see where it takes you. And there's been successful screenwriters out of every single one of those. So I think it's really up to the individual.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I mean, this is an international festival and an international screenplay competition, and we get stuff from everywhere. I mean, I would say the majority is not even Canada, I think, US. And, this year it seemed like a lot of the top people are from LA. But in other years, I mean, they can be from anywhere, and you don't know always how you're gonna find your way if you're not, like you say, if you don't have the 4 years and the money, there's other options. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if I think it might be harder. I think there's something to be said, like people with an acting background, other aspects of the industry, I think is really helpful. I know, I was kind of on that path of like entering the competitions and getting so far. And then I kind of had a competition burnout and started producing stuff. So I started out helping people, because, Vancouver is pretty easy to find people who want to make at least a short film. And so I helped on a few sets, and then I came across another person who had written something, but she was an actress. So we ended up shooting it. And it really, then you start producing things, it really informs the screenwriting. So, there's that,
That's certainly been my experience as well. Since graduating, I've done a lot of writing, but I've also done a lot of producing as well. And the Canadian broadcasters in particular, the funders, really put an emphasis on keeping the creators, the writers, on board in a producer role, in a creative producer role. And so I've noticed that. I've been, you're kind of almost forced into producing whether you want to do it or not. But then at least it's going to get made, right? It's the only way to get anything made is to try to produce it yourself, it seems. In Canada, I don't know what it's like in the States. Maybe one of the Isabel can speak to that. But it's up here. It just seems to be, if you're not prepared to sort of drive it yourself, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, there's absolutely. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, there's definitely an aspect of that. If you can be a writer who has some skills with production, with directing, with casting, even just with networking, to be able to like pull your own projects together, that definitely gives you a leg up. But I will also say, I just kind of wanted to jump in to note, like, I've lived in several cities, most entirely down the West Coast, interestingly. I'm actually from Vancouver originally. I grew up in Seattle. I did my undergraduate in Portland, and then I moved down to Los Angeles. And in every city that I've lived in, there has been a really strong community of filmmakers, you know, and getting the big distribution that comes out of Los Angeles, or, you know, many countries, Canada included, have their own kind of central hubs. But so there's a lot of resources in those areas, but if you are not interested in finding your way there, or if you are unable to, there are always local communities of filmmakers. And in my experience, they've always been fantastic.
Yeah, piggybacking off that, I was going to say something similar, which is that, yeah, there's obviously still kind of that root out here, and I'm sure there are other LA folks who would agree that, you know, you get repped and you go to Netflix and then we make a movie. But it's a lot of times it's either you learn how to produce, or you make a lot of good friends who are producers and directors and they know how to do that thing. And if you can get a team together that is a writer, a producer, and a director, you can make things happen. But it's really nice to be able to, you know, it's like Isabel was talking about, it's like what you were talking about as well, that there's, if you can find those communities of like-minded people who want to, you know, work to a common goal, it's going to be so much easier to start making that stuff a reality than if you're just trying to, you know, write scripts into the void. And I think one of the things that's hard if you don't live somewhere like LA or Vancouver or somewhere that has that big base of filmmakers is just finding those other people who have that drive. And when you can find them, that's always, that for me has been the best thing. I don't know if others would agree with that.
Awesome. So I just found the questions and answers. Well, there's no answers, but I just found a question thing here. So this has been really fun so far. I guess we have people listening in. So I'm just going to look at a couple of these questions. Okay. Increasingly, it seems that writers must engage with social media and maintain a strong presence online. How does this work for everyone? Is it a good thing, or is it, oh, is it more work for nothing? So also, before we dive into that, I just want to mention there is actually a workshop, and I think, like with the festival, I just have to find the thing, but so this is on Saturday, March 13th at 11 a.m. Digital marketing with Annalise Larson. I think it's more film oriented than screenwriting oriented per se, but that's an awesome resource if people listening in want to make sure that they can find their way to that. You can find it on the website for the film festival. So yeah, does anybody have a comment?
I mean, I think like with anything, whether you are an actor or a writer or anything that you do that involves trying to garner attention of other people, you know, social media is a huge part of our daily lives and what we do. So, you know, we all have to understand it to a certain extent, but I think it's kind of funny that and this is not a diss at all. It's just an observation that so far we've talked very little about the writing process. We're talking about, you know, marketing and social media and schools and, you know, so I think there are actors as well as writers who just, you know, really focus on the writing and getting their work out there. And then there are people who really have a strong social media presence. I think anything that you're doing that can help get eyes on your stuff, you know, we network. This is a bit of a different networking thing this year than being at a festival and schmoozing. But I am drunk right now, so it's the same.
What a great idea.
I mean, just as a general. But you know, like you know, you never know what's going to stick. You never know. Like there's people that I've worked with that I met 15 years ago on a small film or whatever, and now I work with them a lot. You know, there's all those connections always happen. You never know where they're going to come from. You never know who you're going to meet. And so I think anything you can do to increase your chances of getting eyes on stuff is important.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Yeah, that in that, you know, there's a brand, I think, now as well that sometimes you have to build. I think as a filmmaker as well, and I think it's a huge tool in terms of generating audiences for your own work, and therefore as a writer as well, it's the same thing as what Morgan was saying about. It's a way to network. It's a way to drum up an audience for you and your brand and getting eyes on your scripts. And I think it's, if you know, if used in a really effective way, it can be a fantastic way to connect people.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it is a little funny because, you know, some writers, they multitask into other things, and other writers, they just want to write. And those people that just want to write, I think it's hard for them to think in terms of marketing. Like, who wants to do that? Not me. But you know, it's part of it, because how are people going to know to hire you to write? It's really great to write a few scripts. And then what's the next thing? Like, how do you get your representation? Like that's like a holy grail for some writers, is like, how can I get that manager or agent to get, you know, to get me out there? But it's hard. And it's not, you know, like, how, you know, there's a lot of writers out there. So what, you know, what do we need to do?
I
think, go ahead.
Sorry. I love what Morgan said. I thought it was just so thoughtful, because I really do think that's true, that we're all screenwriters are inherently, you have to be slightly more social than novelists or poets and stuff, because you have to pitch and you have to go out and you have to do that. But a lot of us don't want to be in TV rooms talking to other people, because we are at our cores very friendly introverts. I'm no longer one, but Isabella is. I think that social media becomes so sticky in that area, and we can see how that's happening with celebrities now. We can see that's happening in politics, in that it makes it feel as though your business is everyone's business inherently. Isabel and I fall very different on that scale. Isabel is pretty private with her social media. I post way too much. I'm just a little queer trash goblin on my social media. But it kind of is about, I would say, if you are the most you, like if your brand, if your whole thing is like, I don't post a lot on my stuff, you curate a sort of air of mystery around yourself, then you do have to work a little harder. You have to email people more in person. You have to go out personally to those networking events. If you're like me, you get a lot of weird unsolicited messages from guys who want pictures of your feet, but at the same time, you're still like on the internet. So, you know, it's sort of a 6 of one, half dozen the other situation. But I think if you can just put a snapshot of you and the things that you want to create as best as possible, like that's the best way to do it. I brand.
Yeah. Brand. You know, and I've kind of also heard about your brand as a writer. Your brand is what you get made first. You know, like if you think you're a comedy writer and you're writing comedy, and for some reason you have a one-off thing and it's not a comedy, and you get the thing made, it's like, oh my gosh, now what? But Yeah,
I think
I don't
that
know.
if I can, I think, you know, in addition to social media, I would say for me that jumping in and doing stuff, whether I know how to do it or not, trying this, trying that, you know, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. Okay, I don't know how to do it, but I'll try it. Like that's been my entire career, right? You know, I started out wanting to be a serious, well-respected dramatic actress, and everybody kept telling me I should do comedy. And then when I did, I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. But you know, I didn't know how to write sketch comedy. None of us did. We tried. You know, when I was the artistic director at the Vancouver International Comedy Festival, I learned how to use Excel spreadsheets by somebody giving me an Excel spreadsheet and telling me to figure it out. Right. I took a wonderful writing pilot writing course called Write Your Damn Pilot, Damn It, with Caitlin Fontana, who is amazing. She's originally from BC, was in New York when I did her class. She's in LA now. If you get a chance to work with her, she's fantastic. But, you know, I think especially as women, we end up just, you know, you have to dive in and try things that you might not be good at, things you don't know how to do. All of the things, right? You don't have a choice. I wanted to have a comedy show, so we had to write and produce one, and I had to learn how to do all of that, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's just kind of the industry, but also as women. And with all due respect, you know, lots of dudes just jump in and try stuff that they are not good at. You know, I am a big proponent of just getting in there and doing it, and just not giving people reasons to not hire you. I tell my students all the time, if there's a stack of scripts and somebody is looking to make that stack a lot smaller so that it's manageable, they're going to look for, you know, every reason that they can to take your script out of that pile. So don't give them one.
You just made me think of this other question I saw. Imposter syndrome. We have a question here. With regards to imposter syndrome, what are the things you tell yourself in the quiet moments to keep yourself writing? But, you know, I mean, I'm kind of thinking of it in terms of what you, like you just said, like, I'm sorry, but we're the Women in Film Festival. So when, you know, when Morgan says, oh yeah, like a guy, I'll just jump in, you know, whether they can do it or not, you know, what do we, you know, what's different? Or is it getting less so about, oh, okay, I'm just a writer?
Well, I mean, the stats are pretty clear that we're still struggling to even get close, right? And I don't think that, you know, and I don't even watch the Oscars anymore, because what's the point? You know, like, you know how it's going to end, and you also know who all the nominees are going to be, and it's a really rare, and it seems to be a politicized decision when it isn't all white men, you know, kind of running all of those categories. And we still have an uphill battle, but I think the expectation can never be that, you know, to look to anyone else for fairness, to look to anyone else for that. Like if you don't do it yourself, no one's going to do it for you. It's not their responsibility to do it for us. And I think that's the other thing, is it's not up to, you know, the people who, the demographic that has sort of ruled this industry forever. It's not up to them to give up anything. Like, we have to create it for ourselves. It's as simple as that. And so I think that speaks to what Morgan was saying as well. You know, we're still fighting the fact that, you know, I think a lot of men who dive into things and try things and aren't very good at them are still more successful than a lot of women who dive into things and happen to be really good at them and excel because of the way the networks work, like because of the networking and the way it works, and nepotism, and people wanting to produce something that's familiar to them. And the people who are doing that are the ones with the money. And, you know, a lot of them are still the same old people that have been there forever. It's really about, like, how do you get a film made? I don't know. And the answer to that is, what I mean when I say I don't know is any way you can, like any way you have to. And there's no formula.
There's
you got to just
answers to that question of how do you get a film made. So to the imposter syndrome person, I'm gonna just say, you're not an imposter. Just do your thing. Okay. And what we're talking about here is actually a different problem, because people are doing their thing. Women are doing their thing, and some aren't succeeding, some more than others, some less than others. But, you know, that's the way we do it, is by doing it.
I think with a few exceptions as well. Women don't get into this industry at the expense of other women. Like we aren't, I would like to believe we don't step on each other to get to anywhere. I think that, you know, I would like to believe that we're more prone to help each other and, you know, kind of give each other a leg up when, you know, like this is, you know, I'm producing and I'm writing produced material, but I'm still teaching, you know, and I still feel that that's where that needs to happen, because there's just still so much underrepresentation, you know, and misrepresentation. So yeah, it's just don't expect anybody to do it for you. And you feel like an imposter. Like I think everybody else at some point feels like, am I entitled to this? Do you believe in it? Do you love it? Do you, you know?
That's what you are.
Yeah.
You know, you're entitled to it. So
yeah.
So I have like two things on that. So the one thing I need to remind myself to say, when I decided to produce a short film, which then spun into a web series after that, I got together with a bunch of friends from women in film. It was an all-female cast and crew for our short film. Okay. Mm-hmm. And we didn't have very much budget. But what we did was we said, okay, so who's ever working in the industry as a whatever, like they're trained as a cinematographer and they're working as a gaffer. Okay. Mm-hmm. But let's give them the credit that's due to them. So she got the cinematographer credit. Mm-hmm. Somebody else was, maybe hadn't had a job, had gone to film school. So, okay, well, they're going to start as a PA. Somebody else is going to be, whenever we could up the credit. Mm-hmm. to something that at least looked more real for them on their resume than anything they were getting out in the broader industry. We did that, and we did it all female cast and crew, and I was really proud of that. It's been a few years since we did our festival circuit and all that, but yeah, so that's something that you can do, like what you're saying. It's not on the backs. It's not on whatever, stepping on the backs. It's on the, come on, get on my back, in the industry for women. And I the second thing I wanted to just, because Isabel was, you're working in a writer's room. Did I hear you or your partner say there?
I unfortunately do not work in a writer's room currently, although I did just wrap production as a PA, like you mentioned, on this season of Mr. Mayor for NBC Universal. So that was a unique situation because our writer's room was across the country. Our production was based in LA, the writer's room was in New York. So it was very interesting to be able to work with the writers from such a distance, especially once COVID hit.
Okay, so you had like some experience with a writer's room, even though you weren't actually in the room, but you were connected to the room. But so I just, I was kind of wondering about that because in television, there's a whole different animal there called the writer's room. And there's a whole, okay, I have a quote that I don't know who it is. Okay, it's like one of these Hollywood quotes, quotes that should be Jack Warner or somebody. And it's like, the writer has the most important job in Hollywood, okay? And the producer's job is to find out that to make sure the writer never finds that out.
I believe is true, yeah.
But in television, the writers are so important, they're called producers.
Yes, in television, the showrunner is always going to be a writer, and that's something that you don't get as much in other areas of filmmaking and visual media. So it's pretty special.
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very different. Like, in film, a director is like the god or goddess, but let's say God, and the director in TV is kind of just an employee, right? I mean,
different every episode or different every group of episodes, typically. It's a very interesting experience. I was actually Isabella and I recently were volunteers helping today's USC students with their pitching and networking skills. So we had conversations with some like up and coming writers. And one of the things that we talked about in one of the conversations I had is this notion, I mean, it's kind of exactly what you're saying, but like even outside of television, I think we as writers can forget the fact that if a writer doesn't write something, there is nothing to make. And I've worked in other aspects of media, visual media. I worked in literary scouting for a little while, where a lot of what you're doing is hearing about what studios and what production offices, what they want, the script they're looking for that they haven't been able to find yet, and then going out and trying to find them the closest approximation of that that's been written. But if you are a writer, and you know that there's a gap out there, stories that aren't being told and deserve to be told and that people want to see, you can make that happen by writing a script. And I do think that that is a power that a lot of writers forget we have, because it can be so hard to get things made.
Good, thank you. I'm gonna go back to the questions. Just gonna skip that one for a second and come back to it. Is there anyone here represented by an agency? And is that a first step to making the script sale?
I have an agent based in Vancouver. It's Anna Archer with Lucas Talent, and yeah, absolutely. And for me, Anna is obviously an invaluable resource with finding opportunities, but even more so, if I find my own opportunities, then she can negotiate them, and I don't have to deal with that aspect of it. So for me, that is the greatest thing, is that I can just producer wants to work with me, I can say, yep, go to my agent, and she'll figure all that out first. And once that's figured out, then I can sit down and talk to you about the creative. So I'm not worried about that part, the business side of it. She's fantastic about that. She's also a great sounding board, because, sometimes you're going to work on a production every once in a while, and you don't want anybody else to know how you feel in that moment, right? And so she's been great for that as well. She can really kind of, but also it's just should I be doing this? Is this good for, is this good for my career kind of thing? She's very candid and open about that. But in terms of finding the work, I would say it's still about, she does a lot. I still think it's about 50-50. In terms of what she brings to me, and what I'm bringing to her.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I have a manager in LA, and we've been really close to getting that sale. I have to say, what's really been great is when I'm turned down by such a high quality of producer now. It's so awesome. So I do love my manager. I love working with the manager, and I'm still kind of working my way through there. I want to mention that when you go to the ISA, they have a whole section, when you're the member. So everybody here is going to get a membership to the ISA. If you're not already in it, if you're already in it, you know about this. There's a thing of writing gigs. There's a whole page. You get an email every couple of days. So, that's another route. You don't have to have a manager every time, but once you get to the stage where, you seem to be close to making a deal, you probably can get a manager or an agent to help with that sale. So I hope that answers the question over there. I'm just going to go find another one. I think we're getting a little crunchy on our time here. So that was it. So only one of you represented right now on the agency side? Okay, good to know. People are writing really good screenplays and they're not even represented. So, there's room there. Okay, anyone here also a producer, and is that something to consider as a writer in order to get the films you have written made?
So I'm just going to jump in and say that I have to go, but thank you so much for having me. You can find me online at morganbrayton.com. You all are amazing, and I can't wait to read your stuff.
Okay. Thanks so much, Morgan. Okay. Yeah, I think we had to have a few other people pop out as well, but yeah, so who else is producing?
I am. Yeah. And it's true that one of the best things that ever happened to me when I was doing my first short film, I approached a director in Vancouver I really love, Tracy D. Smith. And I asked her, you know, like, do you think that the script is worth making? And she said, I will direct it for you if you produce it. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, what? I don't know how. And she goes, well, you know what you need. You're the one who wrote it. Like, go figure it out. Like, go get us a house, go get us a murder weapon, go get us a victim kind of thing. So it was like, all right. So, and, you know, and get us a bit of that extra, you know, kind of the funding that we needed. So, I mean, it was a lot of, hi, Mom, hi, Dad, do you have a bit of cash you can spare kind of thing. But it was a great experience. And does it help? It does. It becomes an imperative in Canada. Again, I don't know how it works in the States, but in Canada, you are almost automatically attached as a producer on anything that you're writing that's getting into production if it's funded, because the funders want to know that the creator is of the project is benefiting from it and is in control of it creatively.
That's great. Yeah, if you're just to, you know, directed to the person who asked that question, like if you're thinking of making that leap, start small.
Yeah. Yes.
Look at what you want to write, and then go smaller. Take it down to limited locations. I mean, and even like you go to that, like I was saying, that gig list on the ISA, and like there's people looking for the single location movie. Okay, yep. They're really cheap to make. Okay, so if you get your head around what movie that is for you to write the script for, you know, there's a market for that. So, you know, go there. Why not? Yeah. And I mean, even, you know, doing a little web series, and we're kind of just writing what we want. And we had a good, so I produced and actually directed like our director was doing something else. So from the short film. So I did a 6-part, 6-episode web series, producer, writer, and director, co-writer, co-producer, and director. And I was like, I never directed anything before. And I just said yes, because why not? And it's such a big education. But, you know, you kind of go, yeah, don't do it in a restaurant. Do it somewhere else. You know, unless
if anything will teach you how to write to a budget, like exactly. Anything will teach you how to write economically, and without compromising your story. It doesn't have to compromise your story to make it affordable to shoot it.
Yeah, we didn't have to have. We could have had that conversation in the hallway. We didn't have to have it in a restaurant. We just wanted something different, and we wrote it as a restaurant. And then we got the restaurant, and then the boss of the restaurant was like, no. We have to pay our employees overtime, so you can't do it when we're, you know, whatever. So I'm like, oh. So we but we learned. It's like we brought in a second camera so that it wouldn't take so long to do the shoot. And you learn these things, but you know, I didn't know anything really as a director before doing it. And so unless your mom owns a restaurant, like don't write.
Don't do it. Yeah.
You know, just keep things small. I mean, I worry about the road trip. I love road trip, you know, stories, but I worry about it because you go, road trip.
Yeah.
We'll have a conversation about the expense of a road trip. So
I don't think X's and O's will probably be our first produced feature, but you know, that's in the future.
You never know, but fine, you know, and you know, you guys are in LA. It's, you know, anything can happen.
I was just also going to chime in and say that I think if you are out there, it doesn't matter where you live, if you're interested in something like producing your own film, you know, or short form content, there are so many great online opportunities. Like I'm a big fan of UCLA Extension. I've taken so many writing classes, television writing classes. I just took a film finance and distribution class, which taught me everything about budgeting a film, you know, what you want to do with distribution, how all of that's structured. So I think even just as something as simple as investing in a few classes so you can get a little bit of a background in what you should be doing, and then just go out there and try and make something for as cheaply as possible and get it out into the world is a great idea.
Yeah, that's great. Let's see, we're really starting to run out of time, but okay. Yeah, they want us to wrap up with your top writing tips, but can I just put it in the context of this other question? Just one sec here. I want to get this. How can you tell when your idea is a screenplay? So that's kind of a writing question.
Yeah, I think you always have to know what you're writing. Like, you figure it out as you go. Like, and hopefully you're not diving into fade in. You're actually breaking out your story a bit. And, I find that that's really helpful. And you discover what it is sort of through that process. Like, is it a TV series? Like, is it going to continue to arc on through? Are you going to continue to have these like ongoing battles? Then it's then yes, you have a TV show. Is it something that is more compressed in a TV show, more suitable to the short film format, but it's still linear? Then it's probably a web series. If it could be wrapped up in 3 acts, then with a great big middle one, then it's probably a feature, right? Like, it's with a whole journey involved. It's really, you figure it out as you go. When you have enough story to fill 90 to 120 minutes, and not so much story that it's going to go way, way, way beyond that, then you probably have a feature.
Great. Yeah, I mean, I think you have to know about story. There's a difference between an idea and a story. Yeah. So, I mean, that's... Yeah.
Well, that's just it. You have an idea, you got to figure out your story, and then you'll know what it is.
Yeah. Anybody else on that as far as...
I would love to chime in, and mine's actually going to be a little bit different of a take. For my writer's tip advice would be when to know you have a good idea for a screenplay story. And something that I found is like, I in the beginning stages of writing, I tend to write in a vacuum, in which I'm nervous to bounce my ideas off of people because I don't want them to think they're stupid. So I'll spend a ton of time, writing on my own. But something I've realized over the years, and just through reading advice and listening to other screenplay writers, is it's so important to pitch your ideas and bounce them off of everybody you can, especially in the beginning phases, like your friends, your family, people that you network with, because once you start doing that, you get their kind of initial gut reactions. And sometimes it's I like this piece, but I don't know about that piece. And it really starts to help you craft what the strongest, story through line is, and the arc for your story is, just based off of like getting some initial gut feedback. And I think spending a decent amount of time making sure that you've really nailed your, plot line for your story and your log line up front will save you so much time on the back end when it comes to like rewriting and trying to hone the story. That's something that I found to be very useful for me.
That's really good advice. I think if you because writing log lines, I found was really hard to get into writing log lines. And if you can figure out how to write a log line, your idea, it should be able to just go in one sentence as a log line. And if you've got a good log line, then you've got a screenplay.
Absolutely. And it's so helpful too, to just help you strengthen the log line. So you're putting in so much time and effort into writing that first draft of the script, and just making sure that it's the right story that you're telling, I think is so key before jumping in.
Yeah. Anybody else on that?
I would say that one of the biggest things that's been for me and learning to write and how to know what ideas are and how to recognize where an idea is going is to read screenplays. Read as many screenplays, as many log lines, as many treatments as you can, and just absorb it. Good ones, bad ones, ones that have been made, ones that haven't been made. Just read, and then you'll learn craft, and you'll learn structure, and you'll learn character. And it's, you're learning it from peers who are working or at a similar level to you.
I think people fundamentally misunderstand write what you know. And I think a lot of writers are like, so I'll write about being a writer. Please don't, unless you really have to, write about anything else. But we have big experiences that happen to us in our lives, and you can pull that and you can put that in any genre. I know for me, one of those was, I didn't get to say goodbye to my grandmother right before I died. It haunted me. It kept me up at night. That's what the idea, sometimes you just have a question or an idea that will not leave, and you have to sit on it, and you have to pull it apart, and you have to turn it, as Callie said, into a good idea. And that, you know, question of how do you say goodbye to somebody who seems like they are past that you cannot do that with anymore, became a ghost story about a man who was being tormented in his house by a 9-year-old girl who haunted the place. And so it comes so far from that place it originates, but that feeling of grief and that feeling of loss and that feeling of, you know, communication in that way can be translated. So when they say write what you know, it's really good advice, but write what you know. You don't have to write what you know, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think about Helen, who didn't really know about the prison camp experience and came up with a beautiful story. And there's, you know, I mean, there must be thousands, millions of stories in that exact same situation of World War II. And, you know, it's, I don't know. I mean, sometimes it's kind of a miracle that you find the pieces and put them together.
Yeah, I would say kind of to that note, I think this is sort of jumping off of Isabella, and we obviously have somewhat similar philosophies here, but I would say there are going to be like phenomenal screenplays where like when you see, I mean, there have been made phenomenal films where you see the log line and you're like, oh, I really don't know if I would have given this a second thought if I had only seen like these 2 sentences. But what can really set a story apart from you, even if you can't nail like the perfect punchy like 1-sentence log line, is just like if you can't get it out of your head, and if you know what you love about it, and if it's just living inside of you and you're so excited to get it out there, because writing is hard and you're going to spend a lot of time writing a screenplay. And if the only thing that you can think in your story that you really want to write is just this one great scene, you're probably going to have trouble getting all the way to Fade Out. So just make sure that you're totally in love with what you want to be writing and that you can explain what you love about it to other people, and then it'll come through. And that would be my biggest tip.
Sometimes she makes me check in with myself in the middle when we're writing. She'll be like, what do you like about this script? I'll be like, well, the dolphins are evil. She'll be like, there you go. Get back in.
We all love that about that script.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're just having to wrap up now because it's past time. And I thank you all for joining the panel, and thanks to the people out there in TV land, whoever you are asking those fantastic questions. Hope you all enjoyed it. And we're going to be, the final awards come on this Sunday. And maybe think about that, checking out the ISA, and they have that pitch thing with women in film in LA tomorrow. I think it's 5 o'clock. So I think you have to pre-register for that, and have a look at other events on the film festival, and do look at the films. There are some fantastic ones. Okay, gotta say goodbye. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.